You're listening to the Align and Inspire podcast. I'm your host, Lauren Monique, and in this episode, I have the pleasure of introducing one of my lovely intuition coaches, Jill Foubister. Welcome to the podcast, Jill.
Oh, Lauren, I am so excited to be here. Thank you so much for having me.
Yeah, I am thrilled to have you because you have made such a huge impact in my life, being able to trust my own intuition and really connecting to my higher self, being able to manifest all those fun things.
Oh, I love it.
So why don't you go ahead and start? Just let us know a little bit about who you are and who you help.
Yeah. Hi. Okay. So I am an intuition coach and a manifesting expert. I help my students increase their frequency so they can strengthen their intuition and manifest faster. And I have a signature coaching program, Raise Your Vibration coaching program, which is, Lauren, what you had joined to learn to trust your intuition and manifest the things you want.
I love that. Well, before we even get into how you got into that, I'd love to, could you even maybe explain for those of us? So I would say that for people who are listening, there are some people in my audience who are very about intuition, who are very intuitive and read cards and have all those mystical sides to their business. And then I have other people who are absolutely brand new to it. So you said something that I feel like maybe if you're listening, you might not know what she's talking about. You talked about increasing your frequency.
Yes.
Can you share with us what that actually means?
I love it. Okay, so I am woo.
Yes.
I will do my very best to ground what I'm going to talk about and share about. So I want you to imagine water. Okay. And I want you to imagine a body of water. What is the largest body of water that you can think of?
The ocean.
The ocean. Beautiful. And is that water moving? Or is it's moving, right? Now I want you to think of the smallest body of water. What kind of comes to your mind?
My kids splashing in puddles.
Okay. I love it. So I want you to think of those puddles. Or maybe you have a fountain. But that fountain no longer works. And what happens to the fountain that no longer works? You didn't know that the motor broke or it just rained. You have like a puddle of water, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I want you to think of your frequency like this water. What happens to the water when it becomes stagnant? If your kids aren't splashing in it, what happens?
Yucky.
Yeah, it gets icky, right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And what we want to do is get the energy moving and flowing, which is why I said, think of large body of water, the ocean. It's always in a constant state of movement. So when I talk about increasing your frequency, well, if we go to the law of vibration, physics teaches us that everything's energy, everything, you, me, the microphone I'm speaking into and that you're speaking into, your phone that you're listening to, or the podcast station, whatever you're listening to this, right? It's all energy. But when energy isn't moving, because energy is in a constant state of movement, when it's not moving, it gets stagnant. And when it gets stagnant, that's when illness can happen. That's when you feel maybe out of alignment. You feel stuck. You feel heavy. You get sick. So I help my students increase their frequency so we can get to that ocean that has the rhythms and the cycles and they're moving. And when you get to that state, you then are able to strengthen your intuition, feel more connected to your intuition and your higher self. And you can actually manifest the things that you truly want because you're putting yourself into alignment and the energy is moving. Just like a radio station, you're tuning to that station instead of being stuck in between two stations. And then you get the static and you're like bits and pieces of that radio station's coming through. No, we want to fully be in alignment with it, not only with manifesting, but intuition as well. So that's what I mean when I'm talking about increase your frequency.
I love that. That was a really interesting way of explaining it with the water. I haven't heard you say that before.
Yeah.
The way I think about increasing your frequency or like raising your vibration to me is like getting out of those feelings of like negativity and what if this doesn't work and what if other people can be successful at this but I can't, things like thoughts like that. And being able to let those thoughts go and being able to tune into thoughts that are going to serve you, that get you where you want to go. That's what I think about it as, but I love the water.
Absolutely. Because when you have those thoughts of like, who am I to be doing this? Everyone else is doing this. Why should I do it too? That's what puts you into the stagnant water. And then that's what creates the walls. That's what creates the discord from what you actually want. And then you just stay frozen and stuck in fear and self-doubt. So
Totally. Very much relate to that. And so how did you get into this? How did you start coaching people on intuition, manifestation, and all that stuff?
Yeah. Okay. So I don't know about you. I had weird things happen growing up as a kid, like really weird things. Well, first off, I was a huge Olsen Twins fan. Anyone else? Anyone in like the early 90s? Like
I did like the Olsen Twins when I was a kid. Yes.
Okay. So I was like a big nerd fan in like little preteen, loved the Olsen Twins. And I had this like, what does any, little teeny bopper want to do? They want to meet them, right? And I was like, I'm going to meet them. Well, how the heck do you meet them? They're like celebrities, like little, So anyways, I was like, I'm going to meet them. I'm going to find a way. So weird things would happen as I was a kid. And some of those weird things books would randomly fall off shelves. And I'm not talking like, oh, I was working and cleaning a bookshelf and then books would just fall. No. I'm talking about I would be other side of the room and a book would legit fall off the shelf. So I was in a Barnes & Noble way back in like early 90s and a book fell off the shelf. I'm the only one in the aisle, by the way, the little preteen kids section. And I'm walking to go find my parents. So I'm leaving and I hear something fall off the shelf. And I hear this voice say, turn around. And I'll never forget that moment where I was like, what was that? Do I turn around or do I stay? I'm going to regret if I don't turn around. And I heard something. No one else is in that aisle. I walk over, pick up a book. First off, here I am saying I'm the number one Olsen Twin fan. Didn't even know they had a book series. And I picked up a book of them and I do what any person does, picks up a book and flips through it. And there on the last page, it said Sail with the Stars, meet the Olsen Twins. Ran to my parents. And from there on, books continued to fall off the shelves. And that was a really cool thing that happened when I was 11 years old. But this continued to happen. And it wasn't until I had come home from school, threw my backpack down, having one of those horrible, bad days at school. And all I was doing was complaining to my mom. And while I was complaining, getting really heated in my emotions about how mean like some of the kids are at school, a book falls off the shelf at our house. And my mom and I just were like, oh! Like frozen. And I knew because this was something that would happen, go to the book. Well, I picked up the book and the book was The Power of Positive Thinking. And that book changed everything for me.
Oh, I got chills.
Yeah. So that book led me to go, holy cow, where have I been keeping my attention? Where have like the thoughts that I've been having on pattern? From there, I found myself in Barnes & Noble and I, as a kid in high school, no longer in the preteen section reading Leigh Olsen Twin books. No, we moved on to which was the self-help. Embarrassing to go into the self-help. Now I think it's called
personal development.
Yeah,
I was totally in the self-help section too. I've read so many of those books.
Right? So I found myself in the self-help section back in the 90s and early 2000s, and then went on to the new age section, which now has expanded. But back then in the 90s and 2000s, it was a shelf and a half of books. Mm-hmm. I read them all. And then from there, I went on to, I just want to keep learning more. And my dreams were getting more intense. And I kept having this tug and this calling of what else is out there. So I got myself into Reiki training. I became a Reiki master. I then went on to be a Metatronia therapist, which is where you're able to communicate and work with Archangel Metatron and work with sacred geometry. From there, I became a certified yoga teacher. And then I started working very closely with a shaman. And all these became my tools. And it was on that path that I really discovered how much of manifesting intuition always connected to your frequency. And that is how I created and developed Raise Your Vibration coaching program, and my retreats all stemmed from that journey.
I love that. You know, what I find so interesting about that is that you listened to it instead of saying like, oh, that's weird. Because
Oh,
when
yeah.
I was younger, I also had voices that I heard, but I was like, you don't tell anyone about that. Like,
No,
that's
you
weird. What is that? But now I know it was probably that I actually like, I really relate to clairsentience, but I probably had a lot of clairaudience. So if you don't know what I'm talking about, I'm sure Jill will get into that. But it's like how you connect. People have different ways of connecting to their intuition. And I really connect to my body, but I think I closed that idea of listening to like the sounds and being able to hear because I was like, that's super weird. And I love that you didn't think that and you just kept like following it. And I don't think I've ever sold this to you, Jill, but I always feel like Jill is like, she's in another reality of like everything just manifests and like, it's just like a whole other world when you're in Jill's world. You know what I mean? And I love that you followed that rather than just being like, no, I'm going to be logical about it, you know?
I would have to say I'm probably really in the 5D and I have to work really hard to get myself grounded here in the 3D, which is when we talk about like, oh, I have these new ideas, how to then take that idea and bring it forth. And so I have to work on that. But I love that. Yeah, I guess I do live in a a
In a good
different
way.
world.
In a good way. That's why we're all like, hey, let's hear from Jill. How do I manifest this? Because I'm stuck in the 3D, as you say, right? Yeah,
Yeah.
totally.
Oh, that's awesome.
So that actually makes me think. So if you're listening, one of the things that I hear from a lot of my clients and entrepreneurs is I have a lot of ideas and I don't know which one to choose. Or they end up you might be listening and you might think, I overthink, which idea should I go for? And in my work, I can help you really narrow into like, what's the right idea for you and take that big vision that you have and make it 3D and create the
Mhm.
structure around it and all that stuff. But one thing that I think would be really helpful is could you let us know, like, if someone is listening right now and they have all these different ideas, how can we kind of tune into our intuition to kind of say like, oh, these are the right ideas for us? Because I think sometimes people think it's a bad thing that they have so many ideas.
No, I think that is beautiful.
Mm-hmm.
Beautiful. If you are open to receiving all these ideas, first things first, write them down somewhere. Write them down. It doesn't mean just because you received it, you have to do something right away with it.
Mm-hmm.
And that's okay. Write them all down. Have whether it's a little journal, notebook, whatever it is, write it down. And then ask yourself, which one do I want to work on right now? And if you're like, I don't know, and I'm getting into overthinking, I want to do it all. Totally normal. But pick one that lights you up. Which one makes you feel lighter? Which one? And notice how your body responds. When you go, okay, I just wrote 5 different ideas. They're all incredible. They probably are all amazing ideas. But just start with each one of going, which one is going to best serve me right now?
Mm-hmm.
And you can notice how your body responds. Really start to think about, okay, if I do this creative idea first, how does your body respond? Does it open up and expand, or do you feel yourself feeling really heavy and caving in? Go from there. And then I say pick one. And even if you're like, but I have all these others, just stay focused on that one. And then once you complete that one, then allow the next ones. Just because you had 5 amazing ideas come in doesn't mean like you can only do one. It means just start with one.
Mm-hmm.
Write them all down.
The other thing I think too is when I think about like creating a signature program, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, you want to start with one idea, but if you trust that you follow the idea that feels right for you and you can refine it, I also trust that I'm going to bring in more ideas that are going to improve it and refine it over time. When I think for me, the first step is like calming my nervous system and feeling really calm and regulated and at ease. And then just like allowing those new ideas to come because it's not like you're going to have a shortage of ideas. Just trusting that you have that idea and that you follow the one that feels lighter to you and then move forward because you're going to get more that's going to light it up from there rather than feeling stuck in that stagnant energy of like, I don't know which one to choose.
Yes. It's better to just pick one and go than 1000%, then try and build all 5 bridges at once or going, I don't know which one to do, so I won't do anything. And you get clarity through action.
Yeah.
So you might start doing it and going, you know what? this one doesn't feel as right, but it just inspired a whole new idea, which then traces back to this other idea I had. And then that's what can blossom from it. So you just have to trust what comes and take that first step, and you'll get more clarity from that step.
I totally agree, because when I think about my journey working with entrepreneurs, I started out helping people with how they were systemizing their businesses and how they were creating different automations or structuring their teams or things like that. And it felt close and I liked what I was doing, but it felt like something was missing. Like it wasn't quite where I wanted to go, but I wasn't sure what it would actually be, because what I really wanted to do is help people with their programs. But I was like, oh, can I just do that? Isn't that obvious? And so it wasn't until I started taking that action and like getting the idea, take action on it. And then it eventually evolved into what I'm doing now. So if you're thinking about it and you're like, I don't know which way I want to go, like just trusting that you can take that action, and eventually action creates clarity and you'll get to where you want to go.
Totally. Everything you just said, even when we look back at the journey of how I ended up with my program, I didn't say, at the age of 11, I'm going to teach Raise Your Vibration. First off, I didn't know that at the age of 11, but 11 is when the book started falling off the shelves like crazy. But I just followed that tug and that one step. And then even if we look into yoga, when I started the yoga journey, I thought, I'm going to be a yoga teacher for the rest of my life. I'm going to have my own studio. And I was really going to go in that direction. And then from doing that action, more clarity came through. And now where I am right now with my program, I reflect back and everything I did led to this. But I wouldn't be where I am without creating and following all those ideas that came through. So write it all down.
Yeah, I love that. When you think back, it's always, you can see hindsight is 2020, right? Like I thought for a while, like, okay, I started creating curriculum for teachers, like I was creating like year-long plans for people and like in-depth unit plans. And I was creating all these things, and it's great. I mean, it's passive income for me now, but I never realized that all of that I learned on how to help like take my ideas and give it to somebody else so that they could implement it, and like trusting it and trying it, refining with my students, refining it and improving it would one day lead to what I'm doing here. But it's like just trusting that it's going to get you where you want to go, even if it's not exactly clear right now.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. It's amazing.
I love it. One question I wanted to have for you was around intuition. So if someone's thinking about their intuition, and they're an entrepreneur, if you're listening, I have an idea of why I wanted to connect to my intuition, but what do you think are some of the benefits? Like, why does it help someone who's in business to really be able to tune into their intuition?
Yeah, there's a few things here, but the biggest is an entrepreneur makes decisions all day long. And there's a lot of decisions to be made. When you can tap into your intuition, you can make faster, more aligned decisions for you and your business. And if you really think about it, how often do you find yourself getting in your head? Even if we go back to, I've got all these ideas coming through, or you're creating a new email campaign or a new product that you're going to be launching. When you can really get out of your head, drop right into your heart, connect to your intuition, you can start making faster decisions and start moving forward in what you are creating. Also, if you're a coach, you're able to connect deeper and have a bigger impact with your students. You can feel and understand where they're coming from, and you can help them move through and get from A to B and fill that gap, right? And close the gap. So you can use it with coaching as well. And even just connecting. If you got to make content on Instagram or podcasting, creating content is connecting with your people. When you can tune and connect with your students and what they're going through, the problem they're having, and use your intuition to really put yourself there, you can allow that messaging to really then come from them and that experience. And then bring that forth. And then they'll resonate with that.
Oh, I love that. That is such a good point. Absolutely. Because it allows you to connect. And because I think that's one of the challenges, right? When you're creating a podcast or Instagram content, even if you're thinking about how you're going to structure your program and you don't have people in front of you, it's hard to get that.
It's totally.
Yeah. And so when you can really connect to that person and use your intuition to guide you, it can help you with your content creation too. Totally.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And you'll be able to deepen the connection of what they're struggling with for you to really help solve the problem that they're having.
Yeah. I love that. And I think like one of the things that I originally was going to go into counseling before I went into coaching. And in the courses that I took around counseling, an empathetic listening will say like, I get the sense that you're feeling X. Like, does that feel like, or you're like, I get the sense that you're feeling overwhelmed right now because you're doing blah, blah, blah. Right. And then you can really like help them identify the feelings. But when you have that intuition, your nudges are so much more bang on. And so people feel even more heard because you can really connect like intuitively what they're feeling.
Yeah, totally. Especially because you're clairsentient and I'm sure you can feel it. Oh, this also will help too and maybe you've experienced this as clairsentient because you can feel, you also to be able to distinguish what is your energy and someone else's energy and not taking on their energy. For example, if you have a student or a client, someone who's experiencing imposter syndrome, you can understand, wait, that's not my energy. Those aren't my thoughts. That's someone else's. So I'm not going to, first off, absorb and be a sponge and take that on. And it's kind of like, oh, they dropped their keys. Here's your keys back. But you're not actually taking it on for them. So you can distinguish what's your energy, their energy. And when you can do that, you're also managing your energy. You also know how you don't reach burnout as well because you're able to manage your energy and not deplete it.
Like it's not draining you so much. Because that is like, it is I guess a scientific phenomenon that they've studied called emotional contagion. And so you're able to let go of that emotional contagion. I love that. And the other thing that I think is so important as a coach or as an expert, a mentor, whatever, however you see yourself, is to be able to stand in the possibility for someone and say,
my goodness, huge.
Like, I know that you can do it, but you can't be there if you're falling into their self-doubt or their challenges or whatever. Yeah.
Totally. As a coach, it is so important that you need to be able to see their light even when they can't see it. And that you're just asking them better quality questions than they were asking themselves to get them to shift their perspective so they can see their light. Because as a coach, you see it and you just keep guiding them to be able to see what is possible. What you said, you don't buy into their BS stories because that's just the noise and self-doubt in their head. Heck yes.
I love that. And I think if you're listening, that's where I'll probably end is that idea of sometimes you're like, we're getting into this place of like, I need to do more. I need to do more. What if I'm not doing enough for my clients? Maybe I need to offer this thing and I need to offer this thing. And what if I'm not doing enough? And what if they don't get the result? And I think when you can stand in that place of you'll meet them halfway and you stand in that belief, but you don't take it on, you can trust that they can help, they can come to you and you don't overdo it. So you're not burning out because you're not doing too much and you don't have that emotional burnout from taking on their feelings.
Totally. I couldn't agree more with my students. And maybe you remember this, Lauren, I always say like, I draw a line. I am your guide. I can't do the work for you, but I'm going to give you the tools and you can meet me right here. Yeah. But for you to cross this line, you've got to be the one to do the work.
And trusting, and you're clear as the coach. Yeah. This is what my role is. So I never even thought about that, but that is such a good point. Yeah.
Yeah. It also, as the coach, it takes a lot of pressure off you. Because I know for us, it's like, I want the best for my students. I want them to have all the success. But you will get some students in a group coaching program that may never even jump on the call. And to understand that's on them.
And that's their journey and all that.
That's their journey and they have to face that. And then they will meet you when they're ready.
Totally. And two, then you can still stand in this centered place of trusting your own self and saying, like, I always think about like the percentages is like 60% of your clients are going to need just your regular instruction, your regular coaching. 30% might need a little bit of extra that you're tuning into like, oh, I think they might need this or I might need to change it. And then 10% might need a little bit more. But if you're worried about that 10% and you're doing it for everybody, it's going to overwhelm you.
Oh,
But
that's beautiful.
when you can see it as like those layers, then you can really get like tuning into like, okay, they're in the 60%. They're good. Oh, I think this person might need a little bit more. Okay, I can coach them on this. You know what I mean? Rather than just overdoing it too much.
Oh, that's is so true. I love that. It's so true. I'm like students on where they are. Some just give me the replay and I'm on my way.
Exactly. Yeah, exactly. So, Jill, before I share a little bit about how the listeners can connect with you, is there anything else that you would add to call this episode complete that you feel would be helpful for the people listening?
Oh, yeah. I'll just keep it real short. Trust in yourself and in your gut. So often we reach externally for that trust, but by doing that, you're losing trust in yourself. It's okay to lean in and go within yourself and just start trusting and start to discover how you receive energy and discover your intuitive modality. Just like how Lauren had shared, she is clairsentient and most likely also clairaudient. When you understand how you sense energy, you can really begin to build that self-trust in yourself and go all in.
I love that. And then you're not holding yourself back.
Exactly. Yeah.
I love that. Fantastic. Such a good way to end the episode. Jill, if people listening want to connect with you, where's the best way to find you?
Yeah, come hang out with me over on Instagram at Jill_Foubister, Foubister. I know it's a tough one. My husband is from the UK, so it is Gaelic. And then you can also hang out with me on my podcast, the Intuitive Frequency Podcast.
Love it. Yes. Well, we will link those up in the show notes so that you can discover more about Jill and all her magical ways. Thank you so much for coming on the podcast this week, Jill.
Oh, thank you so much, Lauren. This was so fun.
Love it.